The first rule of awakening is you don't talk about awakening. The second rule of awakening is you don't talk about awakening. And the third rule, well, if you haven't figured it out by now. So, traditionally in Zen, there was this taboo about asking about awakening of your teacher, or talking about awakening, or talking about Kensho or enlightenment. There were even stories that a teacher would smack the student with a stick, or kick a ball, or shout in their face if someone asked a question about enlightenment. At best, they would just ignore it. So what's this about? Well, I think it can be a skillful means, probably similar to the motivation behind the sort of teaching style of Neo-Advaita, saying that the seeker is really just a mental construct. The seeker can never actually find what it's looking for. The seeker can't find wholeness because it perceives itself to be something apart from wholeness, etc. Similarly, with awakening, with Kensho, if we attach to our idea of what Kensho or awakening is, if we chase the mental construct, and more importantly, if we chase our unexamined underlying beliefs about what it will give us, then we often just chase our tail. I do see this on occasion in people who are ardent spiritual seekers, have been at it for many, many years, have done many retreats, have meditated for years, have read all the books, and they seem genuinely interested in awakening, but they also seem quite frustrated. And I've worked with a couple people who kind of fall in this category lately. And it's an interesting problem because on one hand, I feel their frustration. On one hand, I feel that they really want to wake up. But on the other hand, I also feel an attachment they have to what they think awakening is, and a sort of unwillingness to let go of that. So this is a tricky problem, obviously, because our identity is tied into thought until it's not. So our identity is tied into concepts. We're taking ourselves to be something that's structured in thoughts and concepts, a collection of beliefs, a collection of beliefs about our motivations, our history, our memories, what's important to us, what's not important to us, what our values are. We've identified with all of that, which is a collection of thoughts and beliefs. So how can we, as that, or seemingly as that, imagine what awakening is, work toward awakening from that framework? Well, we actually can't. And that's the catch-22. And yet, something completely outside of that framework can start to move in your life. That's the key to this, to attune to that something outside of the usual way you take yourself to be, the usual way you take life to be, the usual ways you think and feel about what's real and what's not real and who you are. You have to start to give over your will or your trust to that sort of unseen force. It's a little tricky because we've been taught to trust our beliefs. We've been taught to trust our understanding, our knowledge. And in the relative world, it's good to trust your knowledge. You should learn. You should think clearly. You should evaluate things critically. But when it comes to this, all of that goes out the window. And that's really what I'm always pointing to in one way or another when it comes to First Awakening. I'm trying to do whatever I can to turn someone's attention away from their ideas about awakening, their ideas about spirituality, and their ideas about enlightenment. And even more importantly, their beliefs about what it's going to give them. So I'm trying to turn their attention from that to that mystery, to that something that's truly beyond, that's calling you beyond. Now, this can sound mystical or religious or spiritual, I don't really know, but it's a sense that you start to get that, oh, there's something a lot bigger going on, or something that's beyond the confines of the way I've learned to think about myself and about life. And you have to start trusting that at some point. You have to learn to give yourself over to that in one way or another. So we have tricks for this. For instance, in Zen or Renzai Zen, there's a focus of attention, a focus of will on trying to answer a question or trying to solve an unsolvable question, unsolvable with the mind, unsolvable with the will. You have to go beyond the mind And then you even have to exhaust your will, and suddenly something just hits you. And that's when the frame of reference of the small self, the mental self, the limited self just collapses. And then what's what is revealed, truth is revealed. We call that awakening. But again, how could you know that from the sense of being a small self? You can't. And you can't know it trying to hold on to the small self. So that's why we use these tricks or focal points or one-pointed approaches or inquiry questions, self-inquiry. So all of these methods, all of these strategies are ultimately to cut off the mind road, to get under the constant tendency to reformulate your life as you know it in your mental constructs, with your mental constructs. You have to stop doing that for awakening. If you don't want to wake up, it doesn't matter. But for awakening, that has to come to an end. It has to stop long enough that something can flip over, that identity can actually shift to something more primarily true. So again, we can do this through focus, through a koan like mu, what is mu? A question that really burns inside you, like who am I? Or where am I? Where am I? I believe all this is happening to me and about me. All this life drama, all the pain, the suffering, the struggle. Fine. But when I see that's all thoughts, and those thoughts are right here, right now, only right here, right now, I can't see outside of right here and right now. Well, what the hell am I then? What am I? Where am I? Go there, look there, rest there, but let go of those thoughts and beliefs. Other strategies are to directly address the thoughts and see every single thought that arises is only a thought. It doesn't actually contain reality. When it comes to identity, when it comes to being, a thought can't define it because thoughts change all the time. But does being change all the time? Does what you are change all the time? And that's a friction point when you realize there's an absurdity that we believe are thoughts. So you can orient toward thoughts. You can de-identify from thoughts or disidentify from thoughts one by one. That's a thought. Oh, that's a thought. Oh, I'm waking up now. That's a thought. I'm never going to wake up. That's a thought, right? Every memory, every image that comes through the mind is a thought, thought, thought. And you've already determined that what you are, what being is, what's real, cannot be a thought. Because a thought can be completely contradictory to what's right in front of your face. Thoughts can say anything. They're just movements in consciousness. So once we really start letting go of all thoughts, all mental images, we come to a place of a certain kind of neutrality or calmness of the mind. That's fertile ground. That's when you can really start digging in. So we use all these different tricks to get at what's going on right now at the identity level. But as you can see, as we start to do this, we're not sitting there imagining what awakening is going to be like. At this point, awakening is a thought. It's a useless thought. It's not a worse thought than any other thought. I can wake up, I can't wake up, thought. Who cares? They're useless. Let them go. Drop them. Now what's here? What are you right now without thoughts? What are you right now without trying to confirm anything about your past, your future, your desires, what's true or false about you? Because those are all conceptual. Now, when things start getting quiet, you start experiencing something different than the usual way you're experiencing yourself when you're thinking. Often, there's a fear response. This deters a lot of people. A lot of people feel this once and don't go back because they think something went wrong or they're going to die, or really not examining the fear closely is probably the biggest problem. So I would suggest if it's really triggering, look into it. What is it you're actually afraid of? Verbalize it. See that that's a thought. Then get beyond it and feel it's just a pure feeling. It's a sensation. And then you just keep going. So this is why we don't talk about awakening. Awakening is just a conventional way of pointing to this that we're talking about now. Awakening is a relative way of talking about how you can realize the entire relative world of thought is an illusion. Once you've recognized that, you don't need the word awakening anymore, and you don't need the concept. In fact, it will be a hindrance just like any other concept. So let it go.